Welcome to the April Design Review Committee meeting. I'm going to call the roll to confirm that our DRC members are present. Amari Davis.
Here.
Robert Devka.
Here.
Rebecca Meyer.
Here.
Andrew Wenchel.
Here.
DRC meetings are held in person and streamed simultaneously to allow commissioners, applicants, and the public to attend online. For members of the board and applicants joining us this evening, today's meeting is available online. If you lose internet connectivity, please reconnect with us by phone. Applicants, please keep your devices muted and your video turned off until your item is under review. When called upon to speak, please unmute yourself, and the chat function is available if you have any technical issues. The public may observe meetings, and participation in the discussion is limited to applicants and members of the HLRB during the meeting. Public comment is welcome at the HLRB meeting. Information about signing up as a speaker or submitting a public comment for that meeting is available on the HLRB website. Lastly, this is a public forum. Today's meeting is being recorded and will be posted to the county website. All information associated with today's meeting, whether written or spoken, is subject to the Freedom of Information Act requirements. So, to return to that first agenda item, so this is the fence of the George Crossman House, and we have consensus for it to go on the consent agenda?
Yes, I think so.
Perfect. All right.
Okay, so we'll do that.
Yep, so the next item is an application from Mr. Khan at 2910 Columbia Pike. You reviewed his window application the last 2 months. And he is going to go ahead and do the windows as approved in that meeting, and he is now returned for signage. He is planning to put in this blade sign and facade signage, and I included in the packet images showing that this building traditionally has a blade sign and this facade signage, and it had it also originally, this is in the 90s. So this is the design that has been submitted to us. Mr. Khan, are you on the line with us?
Yes.
Ah, perfect.
Yes.
Would you like to add anything?
No, just the only thing I wanted to add is that basically all we're doing is just changing the name that is currently there. We're not adding anything. The placement of the sign is exactly what it is currently there from the previous tenants. So basically we're just taking their sign off and we're just putting ours in the same place. So there's nothing additional that we're doing.
Any questions from the commissioners?
Yeah, does anybody have comments? I have a few, but I'll wait.
Well, I think we've gone over this quite a bit, except for the sign. I think it's certainly interesting. Not sure. 2910, the horizontal is quite readable despite the claims at the top of the numbers, but I'm not sure it reads as well on the vertical one. I mean, I can see the virtue of having it repeat, but it's not as legible.
Do we know, so I know historically there's always been a linear sign. How was that anchored? I'm just wondering if, because the current sign that's there now is much longer, and when we put the shorter one on, what will it look like behind it?
Oh, I see what you mean. You're asking, since there's currently this black anchored sign, which is much longer, how much will need to be infilled, and if what does the brick look like? So Has the sign already come down, Mr. Khan?
Apologize. Can you repeat that again?
Has the black sign that used to say P. Brennan's Irish Pub already come down?
No, ma'am. We haven't touched anything yet.
Okay, so you don't know what it's going to look like behind when you take it down. You don't know how much anchoring or if there's going to be holes in the bricks or anything like that.
So what we currently have there, the black sign that you're talking about, where it says P. Brandon Irish Pub. I'm not talking about we're not talking about the vertical one, the blue one. We're talking about the horizontal one.
Yes.
So that signage is pretty long, basically. So we have to actually see behind how much anchoring has been done. But my sign that I'm putting on there is much smaller. So the space-wise, where we're gonna put it is gonna fit right into it. So we're not adding additional holes to the facade, or we're not doing any extra anchoring. Whatever is already there, that's more than sufficient enough for us. Most likely, we're gonna have to cover some of the holes that was put by the Irish pub that was there before us.
Right. I guess that's my concern, is just knowing what's behind it when you remove that long sign to put on the shorter one. I'm not opposed either way. I just want to make sure that we're treating the facade appropriately once we see what's behind it.
Yes, ma'am. The only way I can do this, and the only way we can actually know, is if I take off the current sign that's already there, and I cannot touch that until I have some type of approval from you guys. So I can't just literally take off the current sign that's there. But what I do know is, when I spoke with the designer, the company that's designing the sign, is that the space that the current horizontal sign is literally a lot bigger. So there's a black board that is underneath the sign, and the sign goes on top of it. So and the sign has all those letters that you see for P. Brandon Irish Pub. They're all nailed into the facade. So the locations of the sign is already there. We don't have to put any extra nails to hold that sign that I'm trying to put on.
Sorry, can you clarify? Maybe I'm misunderstanding. Serena, if you go to the straight-on photo of it, so you said that it's nailed to it. What is it nailed to? I guess because from your comment, it sounded like some of what is currently there is staying for your sign. Is that correct?
Okay, so the current sign that's already there, there's a lighting board on the bottom, and then they have letters on top of it, which is the neon letters. Those letters, they are held by a frame which is in the back of it where the light goes. So that frame in the back of the letters, you gotta have a support to hold that sign. So they are anchored or nailed into the facade. So once we take those off, and I put my sign in the middle of it, we're using the same anchoring and the location of basically in the middle. So whatever damage, or I wouldn't put it a damage, but whatever holes are made on the left of it and on the right of it, those needs to be filled in. And that wasn't done by, obviously, I would go ahead and fix it, but it wasn't that sign, the previous restaurant, it was approved by basically you guys. I'm like, so whatever is there, I can't do anything about it besides fixing it.
Right. This is Robert. If I recall, our standards for this kind of stuff requires that when fastening is done into historic brick surfaces, that it be done into the mortar between the bricks. So it should be pretty easy to fix, assuming that they did it to the you know, the requirements of the previous
Yes, sir.
COA.
Yes, sir.
Lauren, do you want
That is correct, sir. Yes, that's what I was told. The same way, the same thing. They're not something so huge. If there is some extra nails holes there, they're easily fixable. Basically, nobody would even see it once it's fixed.
Lauren, you want to?
Hi, everybody. Lauren Ferris. I just wanted to kind of reiterate, whenever we are dealing with signs, as Robert was saying, we would just, and it sounds like Mr. Khan is saying that once that existing sign is taken off, you know, if existing holes or punctures can be used for the new sign, so that we're not putting any more new holes into the facade, and that repairs would be done, and it sounds like Mr. Khan's already on top of that, to any holes that aren't being used, so that there's no water being infiltrated into behind the facade. And Mr. Khan, you know, if you need to do any cleaning of the facade because it has kind of like a shadow left on the brick from the old sign, just get in contact with us and we can kind of tell you how, because we don't want to do any power washing onto the brick. It would just
totally
be
understand that, man. Believe me, I've been. This is my probably third time coming back, and I learned so much about this whole dealing with historical locations and properties. So I will let you guys know if anything that needs to be done.
great. We're happy to help. That's all.
Anybody else have any comments?
I just one question: is the vertical sign, the blade sign, is it the same height as the existing sign, or is it shorter or taller? Or...
Yeah. No, the vertical sign, all the hardware is gonna stay exactly the size what is currently there. All I'm doing is changing the plexiglass because both sides has a plexiglass with the name from the Irish pub. So that plexiglass is the only thing that's gonna be changed. All the hardware stays exactly as is.
Okay. Thank you. It's good to know.
Andy, do you have any comments about this?
Or
you already say something? I think you.
Other than what I said,
Yeah,
I'm not sure the vertical sign, the letters are really that well. The numbers are really that legible, especially the 2 and the 9. It's fine horizontally, but vertically, I find it difficult to, not extremely difficult, but difficult to. I would have expected, if you wanted to put a number, to make the numbers a little more traditional, if you will, without catching fire on top. That's just my comment.
So the name of the restaurant is 2910. I gather. Or
yes, that is the name. Yes.
Okay. Well, my comment is that, you know, if you look at the Irish pub sign versus the original Arlington hardware sign, they're actually both, the bottom horizontal part is not identical, but it's similar in that you have a long linear sign where the letters sit on that shelf that you alluded to earlier, and with that little those little verticals in the middle that kind of give it the center where the blade sign goes up. Whereas yours is just your horizontal sign is just, you know, like a conventional sign. The shelf has disappeared. It's much shorter. It doesn't have any kind of long linear element to it, and it kind of disturbs me because it doesn't, you know, it doesn't have any of the character of the original sign Whereas the Irish pub, they used a it's a modern building. They used a modern font. I understand that some of this is your logo for the thing, but I feel like there should be some effort to make an accommodation with your sign to the historic character. Let me finish. The historic character of the signage, because this is a really simple building and quite a lot of its character as actually the sign, quite frankly. And whereas I think the Irish pub one kind of carried the spirit of the sign that was there before, I don't think yours does. It's completely different. It looks like a sign that could be anywhere. That doesn't have to be on this historic building.
Okay, as far as the font goes, Robert, we can change that. That's not a big deal at all. The font could be changed. This sign is not made yet because again we're just waiting for the meeting and the final approval for you guys before they start producing anything.
Okay.
The font could be changed.
And can you look something that's more that even if it's just lines that come out from the the 2900 in both directions, give it some length.
I have I know you were in the middle of the meeting. I don't even know if I can send you guys something. There's another logo designed by my designer, which I was looking into it. Because I had a feeling this comment was gonna come up.
Okay.
So I had a logo designed, which I honestly like a lot better than this current one. So I don't know if I can. Is there any way I can show it to you guys, or email it to you guys, or somehow get it over to you guys?
So you have a week from now to send me any updated drawings, and they could be considered afresh in the HLR's meeting. So we can do that.
And my other comment before we leave this is also you also notice the prevailing both of the other two signs had a black and white sort of so you might want to think about that as well, that maybe instead of, particularly on the vertical sign, instead of doing the letters on white, you do them on a black background.
It was going to be a black background. We're going to keep it as the same as we talking about the vertical, right?
Yeah.
Yes,
because I think something that's black, you can still have elements of color in it, but where the predominant the feel is more black and white than purple and red. So those are my comments.
But I do have one thing that I would like to say. The name of the restaurant is just numbers. That's the only thing. There is no such thing as a pub or a bistro or a kitchen and bar or restaurant. But what I can do is definitely the other design that I have is much more cleaner. Font is really good, and there's some additional lines that make the sign a lot longer.
Yeah.
So it's just different.
Yeah. No. I think you can do it with lines. You don't have to do it with words. But it's just something that extends it so it's more horizontal.
Yes, definitely, yes.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Robert, can I ask for a clarifying question? On what the direction that you're giving. I just want to make sure, are you all trying to see if Mr. Khan can keep on the horizontal line, to keep those kind of Art Deco line design like that the old sign is sitting on? I just want to make sure that you don't, because right now I'm not hearing that that's something you want to see.
I personally like the idea of the shelf with the numbers on top of it. If there's any way you can incorporate that, maybe even keep the bottom part from the Brennan's Irish Pub and just put your, replace the.
There's one one more thing that I would like to add the comment there is that as far as the size currently, the size of from the bottom to the top, it's got to be minimum 8 feet where the sign goes, but ours is more than 10 feet. So the black board that you're talking about for the horizontal one, the letters on top of it, because we have windows right above it, so we cannot have the sign above the window. The current letters the current letters there are there, the way it says P Brand and Irish Pub, they're only 24 inches, which is extremely small, you know. So the reason we had that the black board removed, because first of all, it's extremely old, the hardware, and I wanted to be removed. So we had the sign pushed down because we're still meeting the minimum requirement of the height where the sign can go. And if we push that down a little bit, the sign, that way we can have the logo and the numbers and the whole everything could be a little bit bigger than 24 inches.
Okay, well, why don't you show us, what your option, your other option is, and we can react to that, and maybe we'll revisit this idea of this shelf then.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, no problem. I'll get that over to you guys.
Okay, so can I confirm we're putting that on the discussion agenda for the HLRB?
Yeah, if they want to do it this month, I guess so, yes.
Okay.
Oh, yes. I'll get it over to you guys, and if you guys can put me back, or I think that Serena was saying the next one is on the 15th or sometime. I gotta check the email.
Yeah.
When is it? The 19th?
Yes, so 2 Wednesdays from now.
2 Wednesdays. Okay, so the 19th is perfect. I'll get the design over to you guys, basically.
Well, the design needs to be, I need the design next week, so by next Wednesday, which is the 12th, possibly. And then the meeting is on the 19th.
Okay.
That work? So just 1 week, anytime this week for the design, and then I will submit it to the commission for review 1 week before the meeting on the 19th.
Sounds good.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so agenda item number 3. This is for another sign going into the space next to the Rappahannock Coffee space. And so this is the existing building, and here we have the sign that has been submitted. Mr. Kataria?
Yes, I'm here.
Perfect. Nice to meet you. So the applicant has already reduced the size of the sign for us and has resubmitted this. It used to go up into the coping, and he's been kind enough to edit it. Do you have any additional comments to make, Mr. Kataria?
Yeah, so one of the things we were kind of looking at again was if you look at the Rappahannock sign or the sign that existed before this, I don't know if you have access to that.
I can pull it up.
That's fine. So that definitely goes above that green or dark gray line I know we talked about. So, and then I started like looking into it. I was hearing that only the first like top 2 lines you should not cover, but the third line is okay. So can you like elaborate on that if you have information?
Lauren, do you want to?
Sure. So I think we were just saying that we just didn't, I think it was just the matter of just to try and keep both signs kind of just in the same location of where they are. And we appreciated you providing us feedback about the brick that we're seeing, everybody closer to the copy that has the green color. It's just paint. It's not like a special different type of brick material.
Right.
And so guidance we were trying to tell about the sign and the placement was to try and kind of keep it in the same location and not to go above. I guess it looks like it's like that, the white line and the line closest to the coping, to see if we can kind of keep them so that they're not going up or above. I also know you can't go above the coping, I think, for
Right.
fire safety reasons. So
Yeah.
okay.
So like looking at this picture that you guys are showing us right now, right? So there are like 3 green lines, right? And then there are white lines. So this is like touching the second line and not touching the third one. And so is it okay to have our sign touching the second line? Because right now, from what we were told, that we cannot touch the green line at all. And this sign, like right now, honestly, is too small. According to, like, if you look at both buildings, this will look too small compared to our neighbors.
From my thought is that you can make it a bit bigger so that it does start to overlap with the lines above. But I think it would be good to hear what the other DRC members state. And also, just so you know, sorry, I appreciate it that you were able to lower the sign at least and deal with that funky conduit connection that you have there. I know that that's challenging, which is why you were going with the replacement being a little bit higher, but it looks like you've made that work. So, but I think the DRC should give their input on how the sign's looking.
Lauren, before we get into that, let me ask a question, because you know, this does affect, you know, the placement of the sign. Is the horizontal element, the fascia that is at the top of the glass, projects from the face of the building, right? A little bit. Do you know how far it projects?
No, I don't.
Because, you know, I think one of the reasons that the Rappahannock coffee roasting is a little bit higher is because, you know, if you're looking up to it, some of that canopy or the fascia element might obscure a little bit of the sign. I think that's why they're trying to push it up a little bit higher, but I don't know. I don't think it projects that much, but if you put it right on top, you'll be obscuring part of the sign, you know, from street level. So I'm sympathetic to the idea of raising it. But I'll hold my comments until everybody is done. But my comments are going to be very similar to the last one in terms of the style of the sign. I'm finding that it clashes to me with the style of the building. But let's hear everybody else's comments. Oh yeah. Oh, okay. Well, that. Right.
See.
That's yeah.
Yeah, so, the previous sign. The previous sign doesn't have that same Rappahannock coffee design. So.
Right.
Yep.
Well, but the colors are more. You know, the colors are more in keeping with the building, at least right now.
But we don't dictate color.
Right. Well, but see this is a difficult thing when you're talking about signs, because signs. You know, that signs are mostly font and, you know, and a little bit of graphics and color. So, you know, it's, I hope we would push it in a direction that makes it more sympathetic to the building. But let's hear what everybody else has to say.
Now, just to add one more thing. I know that the picture shows like it's bright red. It's not going to be like super bright. Like, again, like if you have access to Google, like if you Google thicker clouds like other stores, you'll see it's like a darker maroonish red instead of like a bright red. So it's not going to,
let me ask you a question. Could you do the background of the vape smoke cigar hookah in that kind of green color? Which would you building?
Instead of black?
Instead of black, make it that kind of dark green. That would make it more in keeping with the building, and then you get a very nice horizontal then, and then you know then I think it might fit better.
Okay, yeah, I think that's doable.
I don't know what everybody else thinks, but that's you know, that's my first thought. What does everybody else think? Also was thing, but
I agree with you. I think the sign needs to be raised so that I guess it's smoke coming out, goes up as the Rappahannock does, and cuts the lower two letters. That'll make it much more visible, because that overhang does come out a ways. It does, you're right, it does obscure the sign as it is now. It's not going to look like that unless you move it up. It really moved up a lot more. Otherwise, you probably see it from the street, but you wouldn't see it from street level on that side of the street. So I don't have a real problem with it. I think the comment about echoing the green instead of black is a good point. I think it would help it blend in a lot more.
Yeah, the only question I guess that I had was, I guess the vape smoke and cigar hookah, will that be readable, I guess, from the sidewalk? It seems a little bit small compared to everything else, but maybe it's just kind of, and I'm not seeing obviously like the what it pulls out like per se, but that text seems a little bit small and kind of scrunched down. I mean, I understand that you don't want to make it obviously too large, but doesn't a little bit maybe a little bit too small potentially. That's my only sort of comment there. But
Mari, I think it's actually bigger than the thing that says coffee and roasting on Rappahannock's side.
Yeah, we put them
I don't think it's too small. It's just, it's.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Or it's about the same as the coffee and roasting. I think you'll be able to see it.
Yeah, I see what you mean, Robert. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And I agree with Robert. Although we don't control color, I think a green color, something that maybe blended with the building for the background of those two bars on either side, that would make it more a better composition with the building. This kind of suggestion there, echoing Robert.
Anyone else?
Rebecca, do you have any comments?
Nothing that hasn't already been said.
So do we feel that that changes could be made, lifting it, changing the color to the green, that we could, assuming everybody was okay with it, it could be put on consent, or do we need to also put this on discussion?
So before, sorry, can I ask you one more question?
Yeah.
So we can change the black to green. That won't be a problem. It just, for me, it will look like, because it's a LED sign, the white fonts with the green background, I'm not sure if it's gonna pop up or it's gonna just merge with the building. So that if we can keep the black, that'd be great. If that was a deal breaker, then we'll definitely go ahead and change it.
Well, it kind of is for me, because I think I know we can't tell you to do color, but then we'd ask you to do other things. So it's like,
it's all right. We'll change it. We'll change it to green.
I'm wondering if a compromise, yeah, Robert, might be if it's not black, or if the green is maybe too light, maybe it's just softening how bold the black is. Maybe it can be kind of a little bit more of like a darker gray or something, just to kind of make it a little bit more subtle if possible. So maybe, Nick, if you can kind of explore and see what could work and still see, yeah, the white font.
What about, and this is just throwing an option, what if you do white background and black fonts? Would that be better?
So like the gray and the black of the Rappahannock sign?
Similar, yeah. So instead of, so because the lighter background and darker fonts, so if you do complete, like just pure white background and black fonts, I don't know if that's an option.
Is the Rappahannock black or is it green?
Looks like darker gray. I don't know.
Yeah, it either looks like okay, it is black.
Yep.
It also could have been black and has faded over time. It's been
Yeah.
there for a while.
Yeah,
So
well, it's definitely not green. Yeah, maybe if it was more not a harsh black, maybe if it was a, you know, as Lauren's saying, maybe a darker gray, it would fit in better. I just find it's kind of
Gotcha.
abrupt, it's black. So if you could
Makes sense.
take a look at those, maybe give us a couple of options, because I think
Absolutely.
what, you know, and I know some of this is just the graphics that it's Photoshop where you have, where your logos in is very sharp, and then the you know the background image is not as sharp, so it looks kind of glaring. I'm sure it won't be quite so glaring in real life, but I think softening the black, I think, would help it. And also those white background, the you know, the bar that kind of joins the thicker and the clouds. You know, the background bar, if that was the same color as or close in its, you know, in its value to the building, so that it just sort of goes away, I think that would be nice also.
Absolutely, and that would be our preference. Usually we keep the raceway, that's what we call it, raceway. We keep it like close to the building colors, because even for us, it doesn't look nice if it's a different color that pops out.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And so you guys are okay to make the size bigger, right? So as long as it doesn't go above that second line from top.
Well, I don't think, no, I don't think it should go bigger. I think you should just move it up.
Okay.
What are people thinking? Because I don't know. I think it's big. I think it's big enough. But I would see it moved up a little bit, so that so that maybe maybe you were, the thicker was, all the way through that bottom line. You know, not, you know, maybe the top of it in the middle of the between the two lines there.
Yeah. So as of now, this whole sign is, I think, smaller than Rappahannock, because the original copy we submitted was, I guess, almost the same size as Rappahannock, and then we had to.
You could show it to us a little bit bigger, so, you know, just I wouldn't go a lot bigger, because that's.
Of course. No, and I totally understand where you guys coming from. Like, raise it so it's visible from street level and no harsh black colors. I totally am with you guys.
Okay.
Great, so it sounds like it's going on the discussion agenda, given the fact that we are going to be seeing additional designs. So, Mr. Kataria, are you able to get those changes to me and any options that you want to include? It doesn't have to be one, it can be as many as you want, by next Wednesday?
Absolutely. And if there's any way you guys can, like, maybe make a decision before, like, the 2 Wednesday meeting, that would be great. We have been just waiting on this for a while.
So the only decision that can be made is at the April 19th meeting. That's where the commission votes on projects.
Gotcha. Okay. I just thought, like, if you guys were agreeing with, like, or have a consent about just raising it and then having the color changes, then we can just submit that and have an approval, like, via email.
No. This committee is just a, we advise the full board, but we don't make decisions for the board. You need to get the decision from the full board, and that'll be 2 weeks. So no matter what you do, the earliest will be 2 weeks.
All right, sounds good. All right, sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll submit the options, Serena.
Great, thank you so much.
No problem, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yep.
And our final project. Thank you for waiting. Appreciate your patience. Would you like to present? Would you like to have my computer?
No, I think I can just direct you to Sheets, if that's okay.
Yep. Yep. Okay.
Just go?
Yes, feel free. So this is our 4th agenda item. It is the return of the Reeves Farmhouse rehabilitation. You have met the team before, and they are returning with some updated concepts based on the edits that were recommended at the last meeting.
All right,
No, nothing from the overall project and the inside side of things has changed. So really, we took a look at the feedback that we received and worked to incorporate as much as we could within the constraints of. I just want to emphasize the, as usual, the eventual use of the property and just being recognized that accessibility moving forward, accessibility and functionality, to make sure that this is a welcoming home for both its residents and its community is something that we're working to incorporate into the design. So you'll see that as Scott walks through the changes that have been made that again mostly reflect the conversation and present some of the ways that we work to address some of the feedback we received last time with that intended use in mind.
Great. Well, thanks. Thanks for everyone's time this evening. Unfortunately, Kumar, you get the benefit of not seeing it on your screen. Yeah. The rendition of the package is not as good. So sorry. Serena, if you can, sheets 1 through 12 are no different. They're just, they remain in the package for the full board when we get it. So if you jump to 13, please. And we always have these if we want to circle back. So this is, so just to recap from last time, we presented 3 options. One we called baseline, and then we had alternate 1, alternate 2. And alternate 2 was what was favored by the committee last time, and we have been proceeding to update that somewhat. And you can see in this massing, this aerial massing view, the primary difference you will note is that we've added dormers to the addition to give it a little bit more texture, as was suggested. We did look at trying to do sort of a porch on the entry side. It's just not enough real estate there to do that, we felt, and also the fact that just behind that one window that you see in the addition are bedrooms. So that's a sort of a private area on the inside as well. So we didn't think it would be good to have something that was, for lack of a better term, an attractive nuisance to have people want to occupy that space directly adjacent to a bedroom. But we did add dormers to give it a little bit more texture. That attic space, as we developed a little bit more detail in the interior layout of that second floor in the addition, we think for the benefit of the operations that's going to be a wonderful storage attic, and we think we can get access from the second floor into that. So we will, those aren't fake dormers; they'll be real dormers with real windows to get some light into that. At least that's our intent. So the next sheet, which is the sort of down on the ground massing studies. So again, the lower right, you can see the same. You're seeing the dormers there. And just a reminder, we're still in a concept phase here. We haven't begun permit or construction drawings. So there will be more detail, specific detail, as we progress into that. Hopefully, if we can get to the full board this month and get this concept approval, then we're going to race right into that, because based on that, we're going to want to get it done as quickly as possible. The other thing I'll note on the lower right, compared to previously, is that we did raise the eave of the addition up. I think previously we had the eave aligning with that intersection right at that inner corner. And we found, as we studied a little bit more, there just wasn't enough headroom in the addition. So we raised that up. We actually think that disjoining those helps a little bit, some distinction between the existing and the new. Subtle thing, but we think that's good. We're not showing, we're going to show you some ramp studies that were asked for last time. That's not represented here. We're going to see that in a different.
Could we see the southeast?
Sure. So what I will note on this, again, you're seeing the dormers on the addition to the far left. What was talked about and suggested last time was trying to introduce some more prominent distinction between the addition and the original. We did study that, and we did not incorporate that primarily because in order to introduce a massing change, you would basically have to drop the ridge line down, drop that whole roof structure down, which presents headroom problems on the interior. And when we studied that, we also, from a purely visual standpoint, we didn't like it very much because you've got that gable sort of to nowhere on the taller farmhouse, and then the original tenant house, which is that piece that drops down from that. And then if we bring our new addition and drop down again, you have this kind of cascading effect, which we studied briefly, but just didn't like it visually. We think that, you know, so if we have this continuity of the roof line, we certainly have a corner there, an outside corner, and then we have a setback, because that's part of the URD requirement, setback 2 feet from that existing corner. So we do have a mass change in that plane, and we're hoping that, you know, this solution would be acceptable.
What is your material on the addition?
The addition is gonna be fiber cement lap siding. So it'll have corner boards. It'll be most likely pre-finished fiber cement lap siding.
But there'll still be a corner board on the original.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so.
And so the original.
It doesn't read as well. Yeah, but I think that's what we're looking for.
So you know, and we'll get to that toward the end. But in terms of the exterior materiality on the original farmhouse, there's a little bit of guesswork. You know, we're going to take off the existing aluminum siding or aluminium. We're not exactly sure what we're going to find, but the directive will be, and it's kind of noted in the last few pages, is, you know, inspect to the extent there's damaged material, replace it in kind with something, you know, with a wood siding that matches the profile. If it's, you know, much more deterioration is much more widespread, then we may have to reevaluate. But we just won't know for sure until we do some selected building. Serena, if you could fit to page, I think those are the highlights from that. These images. And then, sorry, if you go to the next one, please, 15. These are the ramp studies. So we did, you know, originally we had a ramp running along the front of the porch, and the comment was, you know, that's a visual obstruction to, you know, the nice porch as seen from a distance, and views out from the porch. There's also potential visual obstruction. So we have 2 studies here, both of which I think address that concern a little bit different ways. And so this one is, and you're not seeing the context, you kind of see it on the upper right image, the context of where the parking is. So the parking is directly adjacent. There's a couple of handicap spaces there. So this one kind of brings you up and around with a switchback. We're coming in sort of centered on that column bay of the porch at the left. The primary distinction with this compared to the other one is that it keeps that couple risers up on the left from grade clear. So it maintains all 3 existing stairs up from grade, one on the far right, the one above, and then the one on the far left. Keeps those all intact. And so it comes into the porch at a spot that doesn't disrupt that existing circulation path out to grade.
What's your height on the handrails on the porch?
They'll probably be 30. Well, it could be 36. They may be 42. So it would be one of the 2. I mean, residential constructed allow 36.
I'm wondering if you can't drop it more. Drop it to the height at least, of the window sills.
That may be possible. I think, you know, and
I think you could go to 32 inches or whatever.
yeah, I don't think that's necessarily bad. So the guards between the posts, we don't think are actually required by code because the porch isn't that high. It was a desire on the operation side to keep residents from falling off. So I think from that perspective, study that and see if that alignment provides enough
The
protection.
lower you make it, the easier it's going to be for somebody in a wheelchair to look.
Sure.
Over it, because you're looking not straight out, but you're looking down
So
to the valley.
And is your comment on that relative to both, you know, a visual from the porch out, but also that alignment and elevation?
Right.
Both are concerned? Okay. Yeah, I think that should be doable. Can you fit the page again?
Oh, yes, sorry.
Okay. Yeah, you can sort of, sorry, it's a little thumbnail on the bottom right, but you're seeing that access in relation to the parking. There was always planned to be sort of a sidewalk along that edge of the parking that, you know, kind of comes down and allows for access to the porch, whether it was, you know, the ramp in the front or some other configuration. So if you go to the next page, please. The second option was an option that somewhat minimizes, it does the same thing, you know, it keeps the top stair and the right side stair access to grade intact. Still comes in the center of a post bay on the porch. But it's an L, obviously, compared to a U. It brings the access point down closer to where the parking access is, which I think ownership prefers. The downside is that it obscures or kind of blocks that stair to grade on the right. We think it's a little, somewhat less visually prominent from the park side, which was a comment we got. But it has the downside of kind of obscuring that stair.
Can I ask a question? Did you look at a ramp that that basically comes up the side of the building? It would require kind of extending those, you know, the porch platform, you know, the two steps on the side out, you know, to receive the ramp, but just keeping the ramp all the way against the side of the building, so that you pretty much are, other than extending, you know, where those two steps go up, you're pretty much not doing anything at all to the porch. Did you look at that?
We considered it. We didn't draw it, but in our consideration of that, we felt it put the access point to the ramp where you start the ramping too far away from the handicap parking, because you would be able to park, and then you'd have to, you know, circulate through sort of the drive aisle aspect of the parking to get to access the ramp, because you'd need to effectively terminate it at the edge of the house before you get to the ramp platform. And as you mentioned, Robert, you have to extend the porch platform to the left.
Right.
We didn't like that aspect of having to park and then kind of wheel through the drive aisle more to get to the ramp access, because it would bring you, you know, south of the ridge by a bit, given the length required. Not all the way to the eave on the bottom side of that, or the south side of that, but certainly would bring you south of the ridge line, given the
right. Well, I mean, it's not really a drive aisle. It's the, you know, it's the access to the handicap parking. So you're, you know, it's likely that you're going to be, you know, to get to the end of that ramp, you would be going, you know, through the path that you just used to park the car. Nobody else will be able to do that other than maybe if you're in the other handicap, the one handicap. So presumably people are sensitive about that. So I'm not sure that that's I mean, I know this is, you have operational issues, but I'm not sure it's a huge issue. And it seems from a historic preservation point of view that it would really kind of leave the porch alone the most, particularly if you're going to have guardrail elements, because which I'm not sure I understand again why the guardrail elements are needed, because I don't, it's what is the maximum is what, about 15 inches, from change of grade. It's really not very substantial. I mean, it's nowhere near what's required by code. So
I mean, yeah, I can speak to that. It's really hard in a wheelchair to know that you're not going to fall off the end of something. And so we have residents who will know to put their brakes on. There'll be residents who maybe take their brakes off because they want to go and look at the edge of what's going on down in the park. And then the next thing you know, they've fallen off the edge. So it really is
Okay, I understand.
Yeah.
Well, okay, that's all the more reason why I'm wondering about, putting it on the edge of the building. But in the grand scale of things, this I think this is an important element. But I think between your two options and that option, we can work something out, I'm sure. So I don't know what everybody else on the DRC thinks about this. Please weigh in.
I realize it's not as functional from an operational standpoint, but I kind of like the U idea only because the U sort of gives you, it is more prominent from the park side, but also gives the person descending in a wheelchair sort of a nice sort of park view as you sort of like leave the property. It's kind of like a nice little overlook area in a way. Maybe somebody that's not in a wheelchair may want to go up there and kind of do a little overlook as well. I like that. I prefer that one just for that reason there. It is more prominent. I realize that, but I like that functionality / aesthetics about it. But that could be, it's not a deal breaker. It's kind of my program.
Anybody else? Andy?
Well, the other thing I have a problem with in question, the dormer around the old addition out the side of the house. Can you put that dormer on the other side?
Wait, Andy, let's just deal with the ramp right now. Let's just finish with the ramp. So, have we heard from Rebecca on this?
Not yet. The ramp doesn't bother me. I understand why it's shown the way it is. But aesthetically, I'm okay with it.
Is there any information about whether ramps, particularly for this height, are more or less convenient for wheelchair users if they are a straight shot or if they do have a turn? Because this is requiring 2 turns to get into this space, which is sometimes hard to maneuver, whereas a straight shot that Mr. Dudko was suggesting would take them directly up. But I don't know if it's so high that that grade would be frustrating in the shot.
Rely on Luke's experience.
So we've only got one ramp in our homes, and it's a long shot. We have an L on it, so it's hard for me. I'm thinking about more broadly.
Yeah.
We need to do some research and find out.
Sorry, apologies if I'm speaking out of turn here, but I don't have as much experience working with this direct population, but I do have some relatives with mobility impairments, elderly relatives, including a relative that has both physical and intellectual disabilities. And there's the wheelchair consideration, but there's also other ranges of mobility impairments where you still use a ramp. Some people with canes, people with walkers, etc., who are not necessarily being pushed. So I would say that anything that we can do to keep the span, not require, if you think this is going to be people's homes, they're going to be coming in and out potentially multiple times a day. So if we're extending the ramp length, then you are adding, you know, a for someone with mobility impairments, the non-trivial burden to extend their walk by, you know, an extra 10 yards, 15 yards every single time they come in and out of the house. I just know that from having some family members that have sort of those issues.
Yeah. So I'm wondering if it's which is the greater burden, like taking many turns or getting those breaks at the same time as you say, like if you have the platforms.
Right. So I would maybe defer to you on that. You know, just because of the two options presented, it does seem to me to be relatively, you know, there's pros and cons from my layperson's perspective. I would say it was more along the comment of extending the ramp up the side of the house. Because to me, the concern is less about, I mean, there is a concern about going into the drive lane, but it is just extending the span that significantly would be all those, you know, extra steps that you'd be requiring every time a resident needs to come in and out of the house.
Well, I think since they're going to the stairs, the span would be the same. It just wouldn't be in a U shape. It would be straight, right?
Well, the total run would be the same, but either the L or the U is broken into two segments, an opportunity to rest.
Right, and you would be going from you would have the extra steps from wherever the parking space is up further. You know, you're doubling back.
Yeah.
It's more the doubling back than the time you're to get to the entryway to the ramp, rather than the length of the ramp itself.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, let me. You know, I found Omari's comment intriguing. I've also had dealt with a relative who was in a wheelchair, and so I'm familiar with these issues as well. And what I found interesting, I agree that the longer the distance and the more turns and so forth. On the other hand, often if people need to rest and they need to take a break, it's, you know, it seems to me that the U-shaped one, as Omari was saying, gives you the opportunity to, you know, basically take a breather. You can rest at the rail there and look at the park. You don't have to, you know, so it actually makes it a reason why it's not a bad thing to do. And the other one, although it may be a little bit shorter, it really kind of bothers me the way it obscures the steps. And I would worry that somebody might, you know, coming down the steps, you know, might stumble or you know, it's hard to make, you know, if somebody wants to do the steps with a cane or something, it's going to make it difficult for them to maneuver, you know, between the ramp and the corner of the building. Whereas the other one leaves the steps open. If you want to use the steps, they're free and clear. And presumably there would be some sort of a handrail that would assist somebody who wanted to, you know, navigate the how many risers is that? 4 risers, 3 risers. Because I also dealt with a relative who had an artificial leg, and she insisted on doing steps herself. You know, without a wheelchair, she would walk up the steps, and so I think for a lot of people, having that free and clear would be valuable. So I you know, if we're not going to consider the one along the side of the building, I think I'm with Omari in that I prefer the U-shaped one, even though it's a little bit more cumbersome and it's bigger relative to the porch. I think it offers its own benefits, as Omari was saying. It almost, you know, recapitulates it gives you a place to stop and look at the park, which is an incredibly beautiful view, and that's something that, you know, everybody should be, you know, benefiting from. That's one of the beauties of this particular building, you know, that all these residents are going to have this incredible front yard.
Can I ask, will it be made out of wood or metal?
It's probably wood.
Probably wood.
I mean, the floor of it is probably something more durable. Yeah. We're not talking about pressure treated planks here. It needs to be, you know, a better floor, but the railings would like to be wood similar to.
So it would be, I mean, it's not poured concrete. It could be, say it didn't suit their needs, it could be changed.
It may, the floor may be poured concrete. I mean, we haven't gotten into that level of detail yet. We need something that's durable.
Yep.
And, you know, snow can be, ice can be removed effectively and all that.
And wide enough for a motor. significant size wheelchair.
But there's not going to be a cover. It is going to be uncovered.
Correct.
Yeah, and that's part of when we're talking about the span. Imagine if it's raining. That's what I always think about when you're in a wheelchair.
Well, I was thinking if it's along the building, you might be able to extend the eave in a way that it would be covered, whereas this is going to be entirely uncovered because covering any part of it would be quite a visual block.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
Sorry, not to.
Could I jump in? I guess what you're doing with the U-shaped ramp is making the ramp the furthest projecting, and the house is basically viewed from a much lower elevation. So the ramp becomes much more prominent than the front porch. I object to it. I think that the L-shaped one is the best solution because this is going to be viewed from below, and that ramp projects out further than the porch. And the porch was the most visible portion you see from below in the park area, up the hill. And that's just my comment.
I think that's a good comment, Andy, which is why I think we're, I think it's, I wouldn't dismiss the ramp up the side of the building because even the L-shaped one does, present some, something of that aspect. But you're right. This is you're going to see this, particularly if it's going to have the guardrail, which I understand that point. So, well, why don't we, since this is the major part of I think you've heard our comments on this. Maybe you can, come back to us with something the next time. Why don't we move on to I'm not sure we're going to settle this right now, but let's, maybe we should then move on to the addition.
Can we ask one more question? I
Yeah.
guess what I'm wondering, I can appreciate the fact that you get a view of the dormer on the original L addition to the house, but that dormer makes, because it's higher visually and larger, whatever, it makes the focus onto the roof instead of the gable front of the farmhouse. I would rather see the dormer on the other side of the roof ridge where it doesn't compete with the original farmhouse gable. That's just my observation. The rest of the dormers on the new building, that's perfectly fine. That's way back the hill. You're not
I'm
hardly
sorry.
see that.
You're talking about the dormer on the front of the farmhouse.
This one,
Yeah, it doesn't work on the other side.
Wasn't that required for head height as you came up the stairs
Yeah.
or something?
Yes, the whole purpose of that dormer is because we're introducing a new stair up to the attic, and that's the only way to get headroom in that. The position of that stair only works. It doesn't work.
so it's not intended for view. Is that on a landing or?
No, if, sorry, Serena, if you go to sheet 19 to 20. So on the left is the proposed plan showing a new stair that stacks over the existing stair hall. So we're creating that new stair from 2 up to the attic. And on the next sheet, you can see where that lands in the attic. And that dashed rectangle that's a little faint, but you can kind of see it. That's where the dormer is because that's where we need the headroom at the top of the stair.
Okay.
So in order to get a stair on the back side of the bridge, there's nowhere to start it on the second floor.
Okay.
Right, and Andy, I think one of the reasons we went with the shed was because we felt it was less conspicuous than a gable, which which I think would be even more visually distracting to the, to your comment. I think that's why we were looking at doing it as a shed the last time we talked about this.
Okay.
And and there's probably ways that with the way it's painted, that it would kind of fade into the roof more. I'm sure there's ways to make it less prominent. So I don't think it's hugely distracting right now, but I think it could even kind of merge into the roof even more. But
Robert, did you want to talk about the addition now?
Yeah, so I think I agree that that raising the eave is a good idea. I think breaking that from the adjacent roof instead of just having it extrude around is good. I still feel like it needs more, a little bit more articulation. I'm not sure what exactly. The reason we had suggested the porch last time. Is that an egress, that door, like a fire egress
At the end?
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Okay. So that's
why
you don't.
There's very minimal space from that face of building to the property line. It's
Right.
3 feet. So we can't really build an additional structure there.
Oh, right.
Right at the setback.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's maybe some of this is because it doesn't have, the perspectives don't have the detail that would give you, the clapboard texture and the corner boards and all that stuff. It feels a little schematic to me, but maybe that will improve. It feels like it needs a little bit more detail, and I'm not sure exactly what that means.
I agree with you.
Hoping the porch would be part of that, but
yeah, again,
I'm sorry.
It's just the nature of where we're at in the process. It is schematic, so we just haven't that level of detail yet. But I agree with you that once we do, and that level of detail begins to become added to the drawings, I think it will liven.
Right. Well, I think definitely, I agree with raising the eave. I think that really helps, and it seems to raise it to roughly the level of the porch, so it sort of starts to tie it in with the porch.
Yep.
Which is nice, and makes me wonder if maybe there's some way of articulating the surface with.
We've lost you. Robert, if you're still speaking, you're frozen. Well, does anyone else have any comments while his pixels are realigning?
On the laundry porch, I guess around the corner there, how is that fenestrated? Is that bloody glass or the open screening porch, or
it was an open porch that currently has kind of storm window inserts. They're not real windows.
Okay.
So the intent will be to do
okay, that makes sense.
because it'll be enclosed conditions.
Okay.
Let me know if you want me to move to a different sheet.
So these 2 sheets really just to kind of begin to give you an idea of what we're thinking in terms of materiality. It's a pretty bare bones, but a first pass of the restoration plan for the system exterior. We're happy to kind of get into as much detail as you like. You have a chance to kind of read through that. But again, it's broad brushes. The existing farmhouse remove the existing siding, inspect, repair as needed. It's very widespread deterioration. We have to come back and have a conversation, but our thought is that, and in part because in the existing, that open porch, encapsulating, there is some exposed, original wood siding. It's not in particularly bad condition. We're hopeful that when we remove the aluminum siding, that we'll find generally pretty good condition. But
And that's wide lap? Or is it teardrop? Because it looks like you are expecting wide lap on the main house.
I don't remember. Then
I know that our, and Lauren, you may have a comment about this too. I know that the supervisor for our program was a little sad to see the comment about the front door because she remembered there being like it being a wooden door with a glass insert with some little bit of detail, and she wasn't sure if that had been removed specifically because it didn't meet code requirements for disability. Oh, Cynthia, would you like to?
Yeah, I'm here. Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you for mentioning the door. I understand the need to make the main entrance accessible, but was wondering if you thought through any perhaps alternatives so that that door perhaps could be repurposed elsewhere in the house. I was looking desperately for photos that I feel like I probably took like 20 years ago, but I can't find them anymore. The best that I could find was in the original 2004 Milner report. There was a drawing, that elevation drawings, and it showed kind of a rough detail of what that original door opening was. And so I just wanted to pose the question again. I understand the need to take it out and to replace it, but was wondering, because it's one of the more interesting exterior features of the property, if there was a way to perhaps reuse that elsewhere on the site.
yeah,
So I wanted to pose that question.
I think the short answer is yes. We can find a home for it. Sure.
Okay. Thank you for being receptive to that.
No, I think it's really important to convey how much we want the house to tell the story of what comes before, as much as we will tell the story of what goes next. Like, we want people to engage in the home and know its history. And
Exactly.
So, yeah, we're very sympathetic and very empathetic to wanting to highlight the history as best we can.
Yeah, thank you. We appreciate that. And the door is, it's not going to be the most elaborate front door you all have ever seen, but it was quite an elaborate feature, I think, for the time period of this house and when it would have been installed. So I think finding another place for it somewhere within the home for another purpose, we would really appreciate that.
Yep.
Lauren, did you have something additional? You had your hand up.
I had it up, but Cynthia, yeah, you got it with the doors. That's good. I did have one question though. I just want to ask about the parking. I'm curious to just know, because you all you're expanding the parking surface area a bit on the site, and I just wanted to kind of understand the requirement of the spaces that you need for the amount of people that will be living there.
Well, I'll defer to Luke to that. The requirement, the zoning requirement is probably 2 spaces because we'll be under single family zone. 8 or less, I think, is the standard. A group home would be zoning. On the usage side, I'll defer.
Yeah, so we want to ensure that we can park as people who live in the home, around the home, at the home, and have the ability to be picked up and go to work. Often that's in a metro access, is the metro access style vehicle. And so for that to be able to get to the top of the hill, pick up people and then leave, there's space at the top of the hill, but around in the parking pad needs to be sizable enough for that to happen without accidents, and recognizing just the skillfulness of people being able to reverse. People won't, and that's a big priority for us, is that when there's weather or other interruptions to business operations, we want to be able to make sure that people get to the top of the hill to get people away as necessary. So having more space in the parking pad will enable that to happen.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you.
Cynthia?
Thanks, Serena. I just had two more quick questions. I don't mean to take over the meeting, Robert. I want to make sure DRC members have time to comment.
Okay, go ahead.
I feel like since we're in the staff reporting section anyway, just a quick question. I think this is more for Scott. I just wanted to clarify on a few of the pages in the plan set, it looked like on the addition on the wing, that the gable wing, it looked like one rendering had one dormer and another rendering had two dormers. So I just wanted to confirm which is your preference. Is it to have it with the two dormers?
Yes, yes.
Okay. And then my other question, just this is merely out of curiosity because the HLRB does not have purview over color, but I wanted to raise the question because I thought that might be a way to perhaps further differentiate the old and the new construction on the rear, and was wondering, have you thought as far as color scheme? Are you planning to keep the traditional white, or were you thinking of mixing it up a little bit with the different color palette?
I think we're going to go with red, fiery red.
You can do whatever color you want.
Short answer is no. We just haven't gotten there yet. We know color's a can of worms, even if you don't have purview. So no, we haven't even gotten there.
Okay, I was just curious since we're starting to talk more about details. Okay, that was all that I had, Robert. Thank you.
Robert, do you want to go back to the comments that you were making? You might be frozen again. Okay. Yeah, we lost you again, Robert. Well, are there any other particular elements you want to draw people's attention to?
No, I think covered. I guess the question I would have is up on the screen there again, the upper right. Based on what we've discussed, is members okay with not having a physical distinction between the addition and the existing?
I think so. Yeah, I think you do that sort of break in the plane, sort of face to face. I think it makes sense. It would be sort of a mama bear, papa bear, and a baby bear situation. Yeah. So I appreciate that. The only thing I still wonder about though, I mean, I guess obviously there's no windows sort of in between those two windows on the left side, sort of the existing there. It is, I mean, it's a little bit blank. I understand the reason why. I'm not sure. I mean, maybe it's too cute, but I have to do stuff like do like a fake window there. But it is the blankness kind of bothers me, but it's not my favorite part of the house. I'll put it that way. But I understand it. Maybe program-wise, I think there's something to put there, but just kind of anything you guys can think of sort of as you're going.
Sure, and I think we could add a second window toward the end. I mean, at the end of the day, though, when you've got not a huge, but a decent size, but not a huge bedroom with a lot of windows, it can be very hard to furnish.
Yeah.
You end up with just furniture up against the window.
Right.
That's sort of the consideration for how we landed at what you're seeing there is consideration for furniturability. I think, Serena, you had mentioned last time about maybe doing like fake closed shutters or something like that. We thought about that, but there aren't any shutters on the house. So that
I thought about that later.
Sense to us.
Mysterious, but it could be like the Winchester House. Just shutters to no one. But I thought we also have noticed, or we've not reviewed whether or not you will need any stormwater requirements. So there may be things there like rain barrels or things like you don't know what later you will add for programming reasons that would add visual interest to that house.
Some sort of landscaping.
Serena, can you hear me? This is Robert.
Yes, we can. Welcome back.
I'm on the phone. My charger died, and so my computer just clunked out. And anyways, I can hear you, and I have the drawings up on my iPad, which I can't sign in on. I can hear you. And I can see if you just say what drawing is up on the screen, I can follow along here, no problem. So.
Page 14 right now. And I was also going to ask, given that blank wall, I assume there's going to have to be at least one, if not two, elevators, lifts in the space. And so will those be central, or is that going to be, obviously you can't have, you can have windows against them.
No, yeah, that is why that stretches length. That's where the elevator is. Yes. Well, like I said, we can, look at maybe adding a second window in the bedroom.
But I'm just curious what would distinguish the addition out the back, the roof a little bit more, is to just change the end of it instead of being a gable. Put a hip on it, or a clipped gable, whichever. That would kind of distinguish it. It's just a thought. It would make that a little bit more different and break some of the long expanse you've got there, or that long ridge that was much shorter ridge. You following?
I do. I guess my hesitation is that there isn't that, I guess on the porch there's hip. I was going to say there isn't a hip form here, but I guess there is on the porch. Part of what we were trying to do with that end is to really mimic the end elevation that exists today and just kind of extrude it out. Use that same proportion. That's what that recess is all about. Is the ghosted open porch.
Mm-hmm.
One thing we could do. I mean, right now. I'm sorry, Serena, if you drag over to and zoom in on the upper right.
I really hope I'm not giving someone a seizure, but this is just how my computer's doing.
We have continued the eave, so, and given that 2-foot setback from that existing corner, that means we've got a deeper eave on the addition. We could not do that. We could, pull that eave back to have the same relationship of eave to face a building, which would give you a break in the eave line.
I think that might be a good idea. And then you drop a gutter downspout there, and that would help reinforce that corner.
That's certainly easy to do. That would, again, it would be subtle, but it would be noticeable.
Hey, everybody, it's Lauren. I just wanted to ask, if I'm sensing that maybe the DRC has kind of finished with some of their comments, unless anybody wants to point out anything else that they'd like to.
No, I think we've covered it.
Okay, then my next question then for the DRC is, right now, what we've been envisioning for this project is to see when it's ready to be presented to the full HALRB so that they can start getting familiar with the project and see how comfortable they are with the massing, the placement, the roof shape, more of the bigger items than down to the details that we will eventually get down to, such as materials, and that will also determine things like how the condition of the material is underneath the siding and whatnot. But I wanted to see how people feel about the HLRB being able to see this during the April meeting.
Yeah, I think it's good to go now. I think so, yeah.
I'm okay with it. I think I would I would urge the applicant to, look at a little bit more detail in regard to the, addition. Look at the change that was just proposed about, notching the eave on the back.
Yep.
I would, even if you don't, you don't like it, if you could come with a proposal to do the ramp on the side of the building, I think you're going to get the same questions from the full board. Particularly, I think there is a board member who's very, very interested in this project, and he's very familiar with it. So I'm sure he will ask questions in regard to that. I think, having some proposal where it is along the edge of the building and completely leaves the porch alone, I think will be necessary, so that we're not talking about it in the abstract. We can actually see what the issues are with it. But yeah, I mean, does everybody else agree that we're ready to go to the full board
I think
with
so.
those changes?
And just so everybody knows that this would be like a preliminary COA, like it's
It's just a progress check, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a progress check, but this is something that they, Mike, you can probably refresh my memory on what the LOI states, that we need to at least get a partial conditional COA that things are going in the right direction. And then once we get closer to the idea of conveyance from the county board to Habitat, that you would need to have a finalized COA.
Right, yeah, there's certain benchmarks to specify
Yeah.
in the letter of intent, and having that conditional COA gives us sort of the go-ahead to add more detail, to answer some of the questions, do more of our due diligence that will sort of clear out some of these path dependencies, and that will help us get to a full certificate of appropriateness, which is necessary for us to get to the conveyance of the property, which would allow us to actually do work.
Yeah, and just as everybody knows, as more details come, then the Habitat can continue coming to the HLRB. It's just that this is kind of the first step we need to get through to get to the next. So, okay. Cynthia.
Thank you. So this is very exciting. We're getting closer, everybody. So I wanted to make one suggestion to help perhaps keep the next conversation with the full board very focused on what DRC has been reviewing. I think it's staff's advice that when you're compiling the submission packet for the full HLRB later this month, to really focus on this option. What are we calling this? The second option? I forget what it was originally called last month, but the one that we've been discussing for the past 2 months. I think it would be really helpful to just have them hone in on the DRC's preference point. I think it would be okay to have the other drawings, the other iterations of how you all got to this point, kind of waiting in the wings, and we can have that pulled up ready in case people want to understand the evolution of how we got here. But I think this would really help focus the conversation if they just had this one design to put their attention to. So I leave that up to you, Scott and Mike and others on the team to kind of think through that advice. But I want to make sure that we don't go down a rabbit hole of many different iterations, because there's still lots of details for them to understand with this preferred proposal.
Sure. Yeah, that's easy enough. And Cynthia, do you suggest having a separate PDF that could be pulled up if needed, or just have an appendix and put it all to the back of the same?
Good question. I think maybe just have it separately and then pull it up if needed. I think there's definitely enough to talk about with this preferred iteration, but depending on where the conversation goes, at least we would know we would have that other material handy. I just don't want to overwhelm them with too many drawings and too many scenarios and have them get confused as to what's really preferred?
Because we will be presenting it to them 1 week in advance without any information from you.
Correct. They're going to be seeing this cold, whereas we've all been working together for a couple months now. So,
And will you, if there were two separate, the primary and a other stuff we've talked about that's not the preferred proposal, would you send them both to them in advance or just?
Since you're not proposing those, it would be up to you, but I wouldn't. And then I would say, if you wanted to learn more about it, all of the drawings that you've given us have already been posted on the DRC page, so they can check them at any time. But in this way, they will not be confused by, wait, this was before, this is now. They're only seeing the submissions that you're making.
No, that works for us. That's fine.
okay. And then I guess it goes without saying, so Robert's, kind of summary of looking at notching the eave, perhaps proposing, showing a drawing that has the ramp on the side of the house.
Yep.
You can include that in your packet because those are all things that DRC has commented on and they've discussed with you all. But I just want to make sure that the baseline and option 1 and whatever the other option was really are separate and everyone will be focused on this packet.
Understood.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
Wonderful. Okay, well, unless there are additional comments or questions, we have concluded our agenda. Thank you all for your time. I realize this went very late, but I appreciate all of the incredibly constructive comments.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, goodbye, everyone. I'm going to sign out.
Yes.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
In a few weeks.
Right now we have until this time next Wednesday to get